Hi and welcome to another episode of UnderSugarloaf TV. Today we are talking to Jon O'Donnell about the coal services in West Wallsend and the way they used to get the coal around by train. So here we go, we're talking to Jon now. So we're with Jon O'Donnell again, and we're here at the coal loader at West Wallsend in the area where the Heritage Park is being looked at from the locals' perspective to maybe get the Heritage Park in here. And Jon's just going to explain to us, once the coal was loaded on the train, the process for taking it from the coal location. So Jon, could you just explain how we get the coal from here to where it's being delivered?
Yes, well the train would come in train first, and he would park under the respective bins, might have 8 or 10 bins, and they would all fill the wagons at once, and he'd move again and expose another 8 or 10 wagons and fill it up till he had a full train, and he'd go up there, and I'm sure they didn't have a turnaround, they had shunts. He'd come back down the line, pick up a shunt would put him back on the line again, and he'd back up to the train, so he'd be facing the way the train had to go down to Cockle Creek. And he'd go off, and on his way he'd pass the turn to Seaham No. 2. That was at the bottom end of Holmesville. It used to come up past the rifle range, and there was a turn there. I remember the rails being there as a kid. Then he'd keep going down Barnsley straight and over the bridges there, and then there was a line came in from Killy No. 1. And I remember going on that train when I was a kid with Dad, taking coal out of Killy No. 1, and we'd take it down to Cockle Creek and drop the full load off. There'd be a turn there, and then we'd come back and hook the train onto another probably 50 50 wagons, and repeat the process. And in those days the coal was picked up, I'm talking mid-50s when I was a little kid, the coal was picked up by the government trains and taken into town. And I'd say that would be the same case here back in the 1800s. The coal was taken down to Cockle Creek because there was a really big area there where there was lots of wagons and so forth over the time, and that's where the coal went, and then it eventually went into town on the ordinary lines by the government trains.
So Jon, you also mentioned that the Sugarloaf mine basically came out by truck. There was no train line up to the Sugarloaf.
Sugarloaf mine was originally, and I spoke about Joe Holmes' tunnel as being formulated way back when, and the fellow that gave me the information about Sugarloaf in general was my mentor. He was my deputy at Sugarloaf when I was a kid, Tom Whipper-Bissett. He told me the story about how Sugarloaf was formulated in 1948, but he also told me that old mine, Joe Holmes' tunnel, was put in to supply the coal to drive the steam-powered machinery to sink West Wallsend No. 1 and maybe No. 2 and West Wallsend No. 1, Seaham No. 1 and maybe Seaham No. 2, because it was a Great Northern coal and it was steam coal. It wasn't as volatile as the coal they were going after, which is the borehole, which is mainly used for coking coal. But yeah, that old Joe Holmes' tunnel goes back to the 1880s, and that's what it was initially driven for, was to supply coal for this machinery. And the name Joe Holmes is synonymous with Holmesville, so I'm saying that there could be a connection there. More than likely is. The man was responsible for quite a few things around the district. Good fellow, apparently.
And the road now that takes you up to Sugarloaf, Jon, that's basically where the tracks would have run for the train for the shunting?
Up to Sugarloaf?
The road just up here?
The road up there towards Seaham No. 1 That's a big cleared area. That's where the train would have gone and dropped the, as it pulled through, it would unhook, then be shunted up there. The train itself would come and then go back onto the coal loaded wagons, and then he'd drive off that way. He wouldn't go up there and try and do a big circuit with a full train. He'd leave the train here once it was full, and he'd disconnect, and then he'd come down the line, another line next to it, and then he'd back in on it. Remember, the line that went through here serviced Seaham No. 1 as well.
Right.
And they'd have had the same process going on up there, and you'd have a full train coming down from Seaham No. 1. And I'm not sure whether both companies were affiliated. If they were, that it'd all be working in together.
Oh, lovely.
I'm assuming they were affiliated,
yeah,
because of the proximity of the train lines and whatnot. And this train line's still an open line. It's still registered as a train line.
Is that right? Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, that's great information, John, and I can see the importance of why they're trying to retain the history in the area with the Heritage Park and that.
Yeah.
And we'd encourage everyone in the local area to get behind
involved,
that.
Yeah.
And there is a Facebook page for that, so we'll certainly put that up with the video, and get involved. But again, thank you, John. It's been great information, and I thank you for your time.
More than happy to help, mate.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode of UnderSugarloaf TV. Remember, if you have any news, articles, events, even charitable organisations that you would like to give some exposure to, please don't hesitate to contact me at info@undersugarloaf.com, or you can go directly to the website at undersugarloaf.com and look for the Contribute tab up in the top right hand corner, and you can add anything you like there. So this is it for now. Jon Byrne signing off for UnderSugarloaf TV.